He brought me out on the miry way. He placed my feet on a rock to stay. He put a song in my soul today. Now I can sing hallelujah.
You want me to start back when I was 4 years old in Lamar?
Sure.
Well, there we go. The earliest I can remember was, for sure, was when I was 4 years old. We lived at Lamar. We lived at Walsh, Colorado before that, but then they talked so much about it, it seemed like I could remember being there, but I don't think so, so we'll just skip that. And in Lamar, Colorado, my mom and dad were pastors. Both my mother and my father was they were ministers. And they pastored a little church in a old store front, an old store that had been abandoned or closed for years. And they had, they didn't start the church, it was already going, and they'd been called there, and what I can remember is, was my mom and dad, my mom and a black lady singing a duet together, and it was just really, really pretty, and the audience just really liked it, and it was where they were singing, where he took me, pulled my feet out of the miry clay and set it on a rock to stay. I can remember that. There was another one I liked, but I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, I was still 4 when we landed there, and I can remember having a little red wagon, and I started off down the sidewalk and went by a house that was, the gate was open, and a little bulldog come out and seemed like it was trying to get at me, and I had a little dog that just followed me everywhere I went. Didn't matter where I was going, he was there. A little shepherd type dog, and that little shepherd dog just took him to a cleaning. He wasn't about to let that bulldog get a hold of me. I stood up in the wagon, and they was really going at it, but the little shepherd dog was getting the best of the bulldog, because he was protecting me, and the lady that owned it come out and was just yelling at me because my dog was biting her bulldog. And she got her dog, and I went on down the sidewalk, and I can remember not being sorry at all that my dog was biting that bulldog. Even as a little kid, I thought about that. It just, I couldn't imagine a woman being mad at me and the dog, my dog, but she seemed to be. Maybe I misunderstood her. But anyway, I went on down the sidewalk just exploring, and I went a long ways, and I don't know how far, but I do know it was a long ways because the street, there wasn't any block. Wasn't cut up in blocks. It was a street that went for probably a quarter of a mile before there was another street went crossways. And I can remember going around the corner there and taking off to the left, and I know I went a long ways, but I don't remember how far I went, and I don't remember anybody taking me home. But after a while I was back home that I can remember, and I can remember there was a lady that my mom wanted to stay at our house, and she could make clothes look like they come out of a store. And my mom wanted some clothes, and she wanted some for my sister. My sister was 9 years older than myself, so she would have been almost 15, or was. Anyway, but she had a daughter the same age as me, and she made us both an outfit. I guess they were matching. I don't remember that. I can remember my outfit. I was in little shorts, and I can remember they wanted to take a picture of both of us, so they had us hold hands and look at the camera, and if they said smile, I don't remember, but I had that picture for a long time, and I probably still have it someplace. And then from there, my folks moved farther north in Colorado Springs to why they moved there. I guess it was necessity or something. It was in a chicken house that had been converted to live in before we ever got there, and it was in a big yard. There wasn't any fence around any place because it was on the edge of town. It was just open land, and the family that lived there was a big family. The lady had been married before. I don't know what happened to her husband before, whether he left or he might have got killed in a mine, and because they'd all, before they moved there, they'd all lived up at Cripple Creek miners. And she had three older sons by the first husband, and one of them particularly he was, I guess, kind of got crossways with the husband she had now. And I can remember seeing them fighting in the yard, and finally they fell on the ground and was wrestling around. And the yard was where where a wash went through there. Maybe water in the bottom of it. I don't remember that. Probably a little stream, but it was about 12 foot down, as I remember. Could have been less, but at the time it was a long ways down. Anyway, they rolled around there and fell off, rolled together off of the bank, but at the bank, at the bottom, it sloped like that and soft dirt, and no, it didn't hurt them. But then that was the end of their fighting and wrestling. And then I don't know, a few days later, they'd raised a big hog, and it was a huge hog. It was probably 400 pounds or maybe more. And they decided that they was going to butcher it, and those older boys was going to do it. And they got a big barrel and a fire out in the yard and heating up water so they could. I don't know how they thought it would even go in there, but that's the way when you butcher a pig, you scald it and scrape off the hair. Anyway, they had a pen there that was about waist high, maybe not that much. That hog was in there, and one of them got in there and straddled it and had a sharp knife reached down trying to cut its throat. And that hog squealed and jumped and got halfway over the fence, and the fence, of course, fell down. It wasn't that strong a fence. And I don't remember whether they got a gun and shot it or what, but eventually they got that hog butchered. That was kind of exciting for me, and I'm still 4 years old. And then a little while later, there was a little church, seemed like about a half a mile to the east of where we lived there, and where they call there was a little community called Roswell, and on the edge of that, the highway went north towards Denver there, and they moved up there. There's a little house beside the church, and they moved up there, and by then I think I was 5 years old, because my sister was born in the winter when we lived there. So I was 5 before she was born. And my dad, he got acquainted with a man had at the edge of going, the highway went north, and on the edge of that, he had a big complex where he kept his circus animals in the wintertime. And he had in his pretty big building, I think it was an old hangar is what it was. In the building he had a steel cage where it was round and bars up and high enough so the lion couldn't jump out of it. And it had benches, bleachers, whatever, where you could sit and watch I guess he'd put on a little show once in a while. He'd make those lions do what he wanted. He'd go in there with a whip and a chair, and he had little benches around the ring hung, and he'd make them get up there and jump from one to the other, go all the way around the ring. And I had to go to the bathroom, so I knew where it was and told my dad, and he said, well, go down there and go back there. So I did, but I walked real close to that ring, and the bars was far enough apart so that lion could shoot his paw out through there. And I walked too close, and of course I didn't know. And that lion tried to grab my head, and I just passed where it couldn't, its foot and leg couldn't move very far, but it did move out there. And that scared that man so bad, because I remember he was pretty cross to my dad, because he said if that lion had got his head, he would have tore his head open. I remember that. But I wasn't scared by then. I wasn't scared at all because I didn't see that. But I managed to go to the bathroom, which was necessary. But that guy had, I don't know, camels and a lot of different animals, and he needed grass hay, not alfalfa. He needed grass hay for some of those animals, and my dad had got acquainted with somebody that raised grass hay up in a valley from Colorado Springs to the west. It's quite a ways up there. At the time I didn't know where it was. Later, was older, I found out. And it was a big, wide, almost, that place is miles away where they got that grass hay. I think he just cut it out of a meadow. Anyway, my dad sold him loads of baled grass hay. He didn't even touch it. Had somebody haul it down there. That's why he spent so much time up there. He was doing business. He didn't go up to watch the animals. He might have, but he didn't. And I wasn't in school yet, and my mom was, that particular time, I think she was in the hospital. She had a hard time she had so many babies that she lost before they old enough to live. And I can remember when we lived in that chicken coop, I remember my mom was in bed, and that the neighbor lady was real nice to her. She'd come over and bring her different kind of food. But she managed to carry my sister Esther full time, I guess. Of course, at the time, I didn't know anything about it. But she was, I think, when I was up there with my dad she was in the hospital. And so I was always with my dad. He had to take me along with him because he didn't have anybody to keep me. So I got to run around with my dad quite a bit. When I was 5, I was 5 by then. And then, I don't know why, my dad accepted a pastor up in Silver Cliff, Colorado. When I guess I had my 6th birthday while we lived there at that place, because I started at school in Silver Cliff, 1st grade, and we lived there a little while before school started. It wasn't long, but I had a lot of fun at Silver Cliff. My brother Joe, we had goats, and there was a big goat that it wasn't a billy, it had been operate on, so it was a gelding goat. And he made a bridle and a saddle out of gunny sacks, and that goat, I could get on there and it would work just like a horse. I could ride any place around Silver Cliff. Silver Cliff was a small mining town up in the mountains, south and west of Canyon City, Colorado, about 55 miles. And then there was a couple of little nanny goats, and he made a harness for them. We had a little wagon, and he made a harness for them, and he hooked them to that wagon, and we'd go all over Silver Cliff. He'd be riding in that little wagon, and I'd be riding my goat, my big saddle goat. And that was so pleasant for me. I was 6-year-old. And when I went to school, the school teacher she must have been evil, because she hated anybody that went to church or anything like that. And so she was being mean to me, and I didn't know it. She'd make me write my letters, Palmer method, over till the paper was black. And I know from what she did to Margaret's sister Martha, they moved up there a few years after we were there, and she was mean to her because her daddy was a preacher. But anyway, it was funny. Looking back on it, was funny because I didn't know she'd been mean to me. I just thought that she said, "You got to do that because it saved paper. It cost too much." So it didn't bother me. She didn't do anything that bothered me. I mean, I didn't understand what. Later, I realized from the way she treated Margaret years later. Anyway, that was beside the point. I didn't learn anything there at that school. Had to take the first grade over when we moved. Anyway, that was an old mining area up there. At one time, there was 40,000 people lived up there, and it almost become the state capital of Colorado. I learned later. And there was mines out there north of Silver Cliff, old mines. And when it got wintertime, a lot of snow, it melted and then froze on the snow melted right on top of it. And then froze, and you could walk around it on top and slide down little hills. You didn't even have to have a sled. And we found an old mine that had a shaft straight down, and there was a ladder down there. A little ways was a platform. My brother Joe says, "We'll go down there. Let's go down there, and you go first." And I said, "I'm not going down there." So he wouldn't either. And my brother George had a new pocket knife for Christmas, and he lost it out there. So my dad, he was a tracker. He went out there and tracked us until he found where he lost it. Because when he slid down the hill on his seat of his pants, he lost that new pocket knife and was pretty upset. And our dad didn't want him to lose it, so he went out there, and he said he could see we had new breeches on, and what we slid down the hill, he said, it's blue streaks, because they had brand new bridges, and for Christmas. And then he seen that old mine shaft. He walked over there and wondered if we'd walked. Well, he knew because he could be a little. He could track an animal where anybody else couldn't possibly track it. And my dad had eyes that I'd never seen anybody that had eyes like my dad. He could pick up a straw that was moved by an animal. He could. Anyway, he walked over there and they said that there was a ladder stuck out of the top just a little bit, and he wondered if we went down in there, and he shook that just a little bit, and he said the whole thing just dropped down down there about 30 feet or a little longer. It was full of water. And he said it just made him sick because he knew his boys could have went down there. If we had him, he'd lost both of his boys. And he come back and told us. I said, we didn't go down there. No, absolutely, we didn't go down there. I'm not doing that. Well, I was thinking when I was a little kid, you're not getting me down there, brother. If you want to go, you go, but I'm not going.